Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Sports Talk. Today, bringing you my picks for the Big 12 this season. And my 10th spot, I have the Kansas Jayhawks. They have a new head coach in David Beatty, who just named Montel Cozart their starting quarterback. They have returning junior running back Keon Kenner. They only have 4 returning starters from last year's team. Have some key games at Rutgers, at Iowa State, versus Texas Tech, and versus West Virginia. Last year, this team went 3-9. I think, they got a new head coach, and I think they're going to do better. They're going to be more competitive, but they're not going to have a better season. I think they're going to end 3-9 this season also. So moving on to my 9th spot, I have Iowa State. They have not found their quarterback yet. They have a running back competition between Tyler Brown, Martina Syria, and Mike Warner, who was redshirted last season and shoulder surgery. So he is ready to compete for that starting job. Some key games versus Iowa, at Texas Tech, versus Texas, and at West Virginia. I had them finishing between 5-7 and 6-6. I think the quarterback is really going to define this season for him. I just think that the Big 12 is going to be pretty solid this season. So I think they're not going to be one of the top teams. So I had to put them in the 9th spot. In the 8th spot, I have the Texas Tech Red Raiders with the quarterback competition between Patrick Mahomes and Davis Webb. They have returning senior running back DeAndre Washington, wide receiver Jakeem Grant, all big pieces of that offense. The quarterback competition is going to be interesting to see how that plays out. They're both very skilled athletes, so I think either choice is going to benefit the team in some areas. They have new defensive coordinator David Gibbs, so the defense was really where they struggled last season, so I expect that to be quite improved this season, but not enough to get them from the 8th spot. But defensively, they have defensive end Pete Robinson. He was the outside linebacker last season, so he moved to the defensive end this season. Expect a big season from him. They finished 4-8 last year, and I have them improving to 6-6 this year. I think they're going to be a little better the season after that, depending on how this season plays out for them. But definitely an improvement from last season. In my 7th spot, I have Kansas State. They lost to Jake Waters at quarterback, and so they have a competition between Joe Hubener and Jesse Ertz, the Jonathan Banks, and Alex Delton. They have senior strong safety Dante Barrett on the defensive side. I expect quite a big year from him to lead that defense. Some key games at Oklahoma State versus TCU, versus Oklahoma, and versus Baylor. Good thing for these key games is 3 of the 4 are at home, and the 3 best teams they have at home. Oklahoma State's going to be talented, but TCU, Baylor, and Oklahoma, to me, just stack up to be a better team than Oklahoma State this season. I have them finishing around 7-5. In the 6th spot, I have Texas, second year under Charlie Strong, a quarterback competition that I expect to be won by junior quarterback Tyrone Swoops. They have returning running back Dajae Johnson, and defensive middle linebacker Malik Jefferson, who was the top recruit in the 2015 class. I expect him to have a huge year, and I think he's going to grow into a big leader for this defense. So, key games at Notre Dame versus California, versus Oklahoma State, and at Iowa State. I have this team going around 7-5 and making it back to the postseason. I think their offense improves a little bit more from last season. In the 5th spot, I have West Virginia. They have Skylar Howard at quarterback, Russell Shell, and Wendell Smallwood at running back. They lost Kevin White and Mario Alford at wide receiver, 2 very big pieces. I expect this team to be well improved defensively, and I have them going around 7-5 to 8-4. In the 4th spot, I have Oklahoma State. They have returning quarterback Mason Rudolph, senior wide receiver David Glidden. They have 16 returning starters, top to bottom, from defense to offense from last season, so a pretty experienced group here. Key games at Texas versus Oklahoma, versus Kansas State, and at West Virginia. Pretty tough schedule for them, but this team's going to be better than last year. I think they're going to keep growing to be at the top again. Just a few years ago, they were very close to competing for a national championship game, and I think Coach Mike Gundy is going to keep bringing them back to that level. So another improved year for them. I think they go around 9-3 this season. In my number 3 spot, I have Baylor. Now this is going to surprise a lot of people that they're not between 1 and 2, but they lost Bryce Petty at quarterback, so Seth Russell is going to have to step in. They're ranked 4 in the AP, which is the highest they've ever ranked in the preseason. I expect them going around 10-2 this season, with their key games being at Kansas State versus Oklahoma, at Oklahoma State, and at TCU. Now, before I move any further, I just kind of want to explain why I put them at number 3, and I already started out by saying that they lost Bryce Petty, so they got to break in a new quarterback. But also, I have the top 2 teams, which are coming with a lot of momentum, and both teams have kind of made some changes, and I just think Baylor is kind of going to be on the outside looking in to these 2 teams, but they are still going to be a very talented team. Now to my number 2 spot, I have the Oklahoma Sooners. Now, I know there's going to be a lot of people who are going to disagree and say Baylor deserves to be number 2 above Oklahoma, but this may not be the best argument, but I think Oklahoma is a team that a lot of people aren't really looking at to be a big competitor in the Big 12. So, I mean, they have Baker Mayfield, who just won the quarterback competition. They got a new spread offense. They have senior wide receiver Sterling Shepard. I mean, I think this team is going to be very talented, and they're going to turn a lot of heads this season. They're ranked 19th in the preseason poll, which, I mean, that means nothing, because if you look at Auburn a few years back with Gus Malzahn, when it was his first year, I don't even know if they were ranked in the preseason, and they ended up winning the SEC title and competing for a national championship. So I think Oklahoma ends in the number 2 spot, and then ending their season 10-2, with their key games being at Tennessee versus Texas, at Baylor versus TCU, and at Oklahoma State. Kind of a tough schedule, 3 road games there against 3 very talented teams. And then in my number 1 spot, I have the TCU Horned Frogs with quarterback Trevon Boykin, who is going to be outstanding this season. Wide receiver Josh Doxson, who is arguably one of the best wide receivers in the country. Their linebackers have never started in a college game, so expect the defense to have their ups and downs this season. But their offense is just going to be outstanding. The key games being at Minnesota in Week 1 versus Texas, at Oklahoma State, at Oklahoma, and versus Baylor. Week 1, I think a lot of people are going to be overlooking this game. Minnesota is a very talented team. They're obviously not a top team. They're not going to stack up well. And I think TCU wins that game pretty well. I think TCU's got maybe the best offense in the country this season. They'd have so much firepower. The defense is going to be the thing to watch. If there's a weakness on this team, it's going to be the defense. Even though the defense I expect to be just fine, I have this team going around 11-1 because I think this team is just going to have it this season. And I don't know, depending on how they play, they might even make the playoff. If they play as well as they did last season, I can't see them being left out of the playoff 2 years in a row after them being left out last season. So I still think that TCU should have made the playoff last season to play Oregon. I think they were a much better team than Florida State. I know Florida State was unbeaten, but that's a whole another conversation there. So that wraps up this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy this, please like and subscribe. And until next time, this is Sports Talk, heading out.